It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about a really cool application called PyAlert. Now, if you follow my channel, if you've been watching any of my previous videos, you'll know that I recently switched away from Eero. I had Eero mesh Wi-Fi set up around my house because I have an office outside of my house about 40 feet from my house, where I didn't want to initially run cable when I first moved in, so Eero had kind of served the purpose that I needed, which was to reach my outdoor area here. But over time, I did need better bandwidth, and I'm just, especially when everything went remote. I was already working remote, but then everybody went remote, so having better bandwidth just made it better for the meetings and things, so I ran cable. And just little by little, I wanted to get away from Eero, especially after Amazon bought them. They had some issues. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go open source because that's what I do. And so I've set up OpenSense, and I've got some DDWRT routers that are my access points, and it's working really well. But one of the features that I really liked about Eero is that you could set it up to give you a little push notification whenever a new device joined your network. Now, how it identified that a device was new or not new was always a little bit strange to me. I'm not really sure what it was looking at, but occasionally, I'd see devices that I was like, well, I mean, that device has been connected all day. I'm not sure why it's suddenly a new device, but it just may be a symptom of whatever is trying to scan the system to figure out what that is. But in trying to find a solution for that, I came across PyAlert. So today I want to talk about PyAlert because this is really a cool application, and as the name suggests, you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. Now, if you've ever checked out my videos on Pi-hole, you'll know that this interface here looks very similar to the Pi-hole interface, and I think there's a good reason for that. I don't know that these are by the same people, but PyAlert actually can integrate Pi-hole if you want it to. You don't have to. Into it, which is pretty awesome. And while it says that it's Pi and it runs on a Raspberry Pi for sure, I'm actually running it on a Alexi container VM in one of my servers, so that's pretty awesome. And I wanted to go through how to set this up. It's a very straightforward install. The setup is very straightforward as well, and I'll go through a few of the things that you're going to need in order to get this running so that you can go ahead and do it as well if you want to. And then you can get alerts about new devices that are joining your network, or devices that have disconnected from your network, or devices that are suddenly just missing all the time from your network. And I think that could be really helpful for most of you. Now, you can adjust those settings so that you don't get too many notifications or emails. You'll see at the top of my screen where email pops up occasionally. That's probably the PyAlert system sending me something about my network, because I do have a lot of devices, and I have a lot of smart devices that whenever you turn the power on or off, they lose their connection, of course, temporarily. So it's interesting to see how much I get through that system right now, and I'll have to go in and make adjustments eventually. But I wanted to show you how that functions and how that works. So we'll get into it right after this. I just want to say thank you so much to all of my patrons over at Patreon. It means so much to me that you want to support me and the content that I create, and that you're getting something out of it. I truly appreciate your support. I cannot tell you how much I thank you, but I do truly thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. If you'd like to join and start supporting me on Patreon, jump over to patreon.com. I'll have a link in the description and the show notes. Again, thank you so much. Now let's get started. So when we talk about PyAlert, like I said, you can run PyAlert in several different ways. Now, there is a Docker out here, so I want to mention this. The reason I didn't do the Docker right now is that it's got some configuration options that I'm just not really, sure about. So I think if you feel like going through this process and kind of checking out what they have here, pay no attention to this. This is meant to be an icon, I believe. So floppy disk, that's funny. But when you say set up some backups, what it's going to do, all that kind of stuff, they really walk you through it. They've got some pretty good documentation. It was just more work than I really wanted to put in right now to run it in a Docker container, but it is totally possible. They do have stuff here where you can kind of go get this and check it out in Docker as well. But I kind of went with their instructions here on GitHub. And really, it's a very straightforward setup. There's a few things you'll want to have before you do that. So if you want to get the emails, you need to have your SMTP server information, and that means your server address, the port that the email is sent off of, a user, and a password for that email server as well. So you need to have those things ready, because during the installation, it does ask you for those things, and it's pretty important that you have that. Really, all you need is this command right here, which is this curl command. And then you can run this. So you need to set up your Raspberry Pi first. So it's really important. If you're going to run this on a Raspberry Pi, you want to go get Raspberry Pi OS, and you can get that from raspberrypi.org. Download the Raspberry Pi OS image, and then use something like Etcher, or I think they have a Raspberry Pi image burner software you can get that's free. But you need to burn that to an SD card, plug in the SD card, start the Pi. You want to make sure you give yourself SSH access. A few of those things that you're going to need in order to do this. I have videos out there that show you how to do this. There are tons of videos out there on YouTube that show you how to do this already. There's tons and tons and tons and tons. I mean, literally thousands of tutorials out there on how to do that. I'm going to leave that to you to go find those things because it's already documented. It seems wasteful for me to do it yet again. But you do want to make sure you have SSH access, and you do want to make sure that you get Raspberry Pi OS installed. I suggest Raspberry Pi OS Lite. It's the headless version. It doesn't have a user interface. It's just a terminal. And that's really all you need because these things run in a web browser. So I'll kind of show you what I've got going. I've got Pi-hole over here. Now I don't have any of my stuff running through it yet, so you don't see any statistics, running up here yet. But I do have it over here running, and I did use it. I did get it installed with this. And then I've got Pi Alert running right here, and you can see that it's found 83 devices, and 78 of them are connected. And then we've got 6 events that have happened. And basically you get this long list. Now you'll notice none of these things are getting names. I'm not sure why that's happening or not happening in this case. But it's okay. I can go identify them and then get them to get names. Now, depending on how you run your DHCP server and what kind of information is available, that could have an effect on whether or not those names and device names show up here. If I click on the connected devices, it just filters this list down to those devices. And if you click on the different events, you can see what those IPs were and what events are happening and things like that. Or new devices, I guess is the best way to say that. And then over here on the left, you've got event information. So you can kind of see like how long have things been online or offline. And you can check out, again, more event information. So presence information of devices, and then event information for those devices. And you can kind of see what events are happening. And you can click this little drop down to give you more things on a page. So you can see more information about it. So lots of information that comes in here. And I am getting the emails. So I'll just kind of show you briefly. So when you get an email, this is what it looks like. You get a Pi Alert report email, basically, and you get information about what has happened. Is something joined the network, disconnected from the network, anything like that, and you get the IP address and a little bit more information. Now, if there's a name for the device, you'll get that. Otherwise, it's going to say unknown and any other information out here. But again, as you start to refine the system, I think you can get more information out of it. And again, it may depend on how you're running your DHCP and what information is available from your DHCP server as to whether or not you'll get this stuff as well. But pretty great to have this information, so I like that you can get that email, you can set that up. I wish there was a way to do like a push notification to an app or use something, with webhooks like I use with Rocket Chat, or maybe even like a Telegram bot. But for now, email's fine, which I think it's a good start, and maybe they can add some other alert options in the future. So now I know the important thing you want to know is, okay, how do I set this thing up? So we're going to go over here, and I've got my server right here. So I've already installed Debian. And I called this Pi Alert Aria because that's the server that I'm running on. I have 2 servers here, so this is the one that you just saw running, and then I've got this one over here. So we're gonna jump over to the console, and I'm gonna log in. Now this is gonna be a little bit small, and I do apologize about that. But I'm gonna log in as root here, and I do run this as root. It's bad, don't do this, but this is just to save time for you guys. So the first thing I know I need curl, because if I run the curl command, it's going to tell me that command is not found. So if you see this message that says command not found with Debian, which I'm running Debian Buster here because that's kind of the same as what Raspberry Pi OS is based on. It's based on a Debian version, so I figured this would be the best way to go. So I'm going to do apt update and then ampersand apt upgrade and then -y, and that's just going to tell the system to go ahead and pull down all of the repository updates that are available and then go ahead and install them. So we're going to let that run. It's going to take just a minute, and then we'll come back and do the next piece. All right, that completed. So I'm just going to do a reboot real quick. Now, this is not probably necessary, but I just like to do a reboot after I install a bunch of updates on a clean system. Once it reboots, which is really fast on LXC containers, there it is, we'll log back in. And we want to make sure that we've got curl. So I was talking about curl a while ago. It still doesn't have that. So we're just going to do apt. And you may have to do sudo if you're not logged in as root, which you shouldn't be. You may have to do sudo apt. Just understand that. But I'm going to do apt install curl wget git-y. And it's going to install those things real quick so that I've got all the stuff that it may need in that script. And now we're just going to grab the installation script right here. So we're just going to grab this and we're going to copy it. And we'll go back And we're going to paste that in. And we're going to hit enter. So it's going to pop up right away with this little kind of startup wizard, and it says, here's what's going to happen. Do you want to do this? And yes, we want to do this. So we're going to move left with the arrow key, make sure yes is highlighted, hit enter. It says, do you want to install Pi-hole? So you don't have to do this, but you can. So in my case, we'll say sure, why not? So it wants to know also, do you want to install the web interface for the admin interface for Pi-hole? And yeah, I mean, you may as well just say okay, it's going to do that. It says, do you want Pi-hole to be your DHCP server? So in my case, I don't. I want my OpenSense box to be my DHCP server. In your case, you might want to change that and let your Pi-hole be your DHCP server. It's completely up to you if you want to do that. You know, letting it do that may give you better output into the Pi-alert system. But in my case, I'm gonna leave it on no. But if you want yes, just use the arrow key, jump over to yes, hit enter. So I'm going to leave it as no. On this one it says, what version of Python do you want to use? Do you want to use the one that's already installed? So if you have Python installed already on your system, you can select this one here. If you don't, which I don't, then I would say let's just use Python 3 and then hit tab to get to OK, and we're going to press enter. And so the first time Pi-alert runs, it's going to scan your network and it's going to bring in all of your devices. And this is asking, so the first time it runs, do you want me to notice that those are all new devices, or do you just want me to mark them as already known, basically? And so we're just going to say yes, go ahead and mark them as already known, and then after that, when you do subsequent scans, let me know about any new devices you find. Then it says Pi-alert can notify you by email. If you want to activate this, then we need to hit yes. So we're going to activate it, and we're going to put in our email information because I want you to see what that looks like. So let you know, like, email notification needs an SMTP server, so do you want to go ahead and do that? And if you say yes, then it's going to ask you about your SMTP stuff. If you say no, then it's going to skip over the email notification system. So here, if you had Gmail, you would use whatever your username is at gmail.com. So I'm just going to say brian@fixitdelrio.com. Make sure I spelled that correctly. And this is who it's going to notify. We're going to tab to OK. Now it wants to know about our server. So my server is box.fixit. Let me make sure I spell it right. So you'd want to type in the SMTP server for whatever you're using for email and then hit OK. Now it wants to know the user, and in my case it's the same user. In your case you may have a different user where you want to put like alert at whatever. You need to make sure that's an actual user on your system though if you're going to do that. So just be aware of that. We're going to tab and hit OK. And finally it wants our password for our email. So if you don't know your password for your email, that's bad. If you do know your password for your email, you're going to paste it in right here and then tab and hit OK. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be right back. Alright, once you put in your password and hit OK, it jumps to this next question which says Pi-alert can basically set up your dynamic DNS and update your dynamic DNS IP address. Do you want to set this up? In my case, I don't. I have something else that handles that for me, but if you're wanting to use dynamic DNS, then you could go ahead and try to set that up. I haven't done it, so I couldn't walk you through it, but just be aware that it does ask that. Finally, it says configuration is finished, and basically to update the configuration, you can edit the file right here at this path. So if you need to, you can log in and just go to this file and update your configuration inside the pialert.conf. And it tells you the installation will start now, so it's going to be Pi-hole. So you see Pi-hole comes up, it kind of does its thing, and now it's going to run you through this as well. So it says this installer will turn your system into an ad blocking device. Great. And then what do you want to do? We're just going to say OK. And so this is letting you know that Pi-hole is going to have a static IP address, or you need to do a DHCP reservation. So if you don't know how to do that on your router, you need to find out. Either you need to set a static address for the device, or you need to do a DHCP reservation, which means basically let it get a DHCP address and then reserve that address. I'm just going to go with yes. I've done this, and we'll see kind of how it goes. Finally, it asks, what do you want to use for your Pi-hole DNS stuff? Now, you can use custom stuff, you can use Unbound, things like that. I'm just going to go with OpenDNS for simplicity right now. So move down to the one you want, hit tab to get to OK, and then press enter. And then you probably do want to have like this initial starting list of ad blockers. So just press tab to get to OK and make sure that little asterisk is there in the box. And then I do want this on, so again, you probably want to do the same thing for the web interface. So we're just going to hit tab and hit OK. And again, on, tab, and OK. And one more time, on and tab and OK. And then it wants to show everything. That's up to you how much of this stuff you want to actually log. If you want it to be anonymous, move down here and hit the space bar, and that'll move the asterisk to here. If you're happy with this situation, just hit tab and hit OK. And then it's going to go through the rest of the install for Pi-hole. And it usually just runs a little bit of text up the screen. It does some installation of a few packages. It creates your configuration files that it needs. It does some PHP installation stuff. I mean, really not too much for you to do other than sit back and let it run and kind of watch to see if you see any errors that come through. But generally it runs pretty smooth. So at the end, you're going to get this screen that tells you, okay, here's where you need to go in order to reach this server. And then you need to have this password because this is your Pi-hole password. So at least initially you need to have that password set up. So we're going to just copy that thing just to make sure we've got it. And then we'll change it here in just a minute through the web interface or through the actual terminal. So we're going to hit OK. It's going to continue with the installation for PyAlert. So now it's going to run up the screen here. Again, just does what it does. It doesn't take very long. Just sit back and be patient and kind of let it run and then watch for any errors that it might throw. But for the most part, it just kind of does its thing. So once you get here, I think it starts running its scan and it starts looking for any devices. And the first time it kind of says, okay, I didn't find anything because it's like so fast that it didn't have a chance to do the scan. So you kind of get a couple of these and then it starts kind of looking like, okay, now I'm going to give it a minute and then I'll run the scan one more time to kind of see if I can figure out what's happening. But it tells you, here's your internet IP. Here's just a few different things on the screen that are information that it's gathering as it starts this process. But really, just let it run. And it's done. So, I mean, that really only took, other than filling out the form, me talking you through it. If I had just been going through it on my own, it would have taken me less than about 3 minutes to get everything filled out and done and let this thing run probably less than 5 minutes. So you're going to have this set up and running really quickly if you go through this the way that we just did. So it tells you also that you can access this at pi.alert on your network if it can find it, or you can use the IP address /pialert with an / there. So we'll kind of check both of those out. So this is kind of set, but we do want to change that Pi-hole password. So for your web admin interface is what you're doing. So I'm going to do Pi-hole -a-p. It's going to say, okay, what do you want your new password to be? So I'm going to type in a strong password, and you can't see it when you type it in, but then you have to confirm it. And that's it. My password's been reset, which is great. So now we can jump over here to the browser, and we're going to go check out these websites. So I'm going to put in the address that it gave me. And then I'm going to do /admin. If you don't do this, if you ever get to this point, it's going to show you the little Raspberry Pi thing. It's like, hey, maybe you meant to go to the admin site, and you probably did. But just do /admin, and you'll be taken to your Raspberry Pi Pi-hole here. And then you can do login, and then you want to type in that password you just created. And if you didn't do that step, then use the password that they gave you. And then you'll get more details and you get a lot more control and features and things like that. Now I don't have this set up yet on my OpenSense router, but you can see here kind of that it looks the same as this one over here. Really no big difference there. So I'm going to go also, and we're going to open up the PyAlert, and we're going to do control. We're going to do /PyAlert/. And here's PyAlert, and it is scanning my network again. Now, I'm going to get a lot of emails because this thing's going to start emailing me. My other one already emails me, so I don't really want to run this twice, or it's going to email me twice every time it scans and finds something. So I really don't want to get that, but I wanted to show you guys how to set this up and how to get it going. And as it finds devices, if you're like, oh, hey, I know what that is, you can go in and just click on the device. So let's see, I've got 10.1. This is my OpenSense router. So if you click on this right here, it'll bring you into the device settings, and you can go in here and actually make some changes. And notice there's a few tabs here that you can see information about and make changes to through there. So you can jump in here, and I'm going to enlarge this for you guys a little bit on the mobile devices there. So yeah, it says name unknown. So this is OpenSense firewall. Owner, and again, I'm not sure, like house. Yeah, okay. Type is firewall. I don't know, is that an option? Let's see. I guess we could put it as a router. It's not technically a router, it's a firewall, but it does routing, so we can set it as a router. Vendor is open. Sense. Then you can set a location. Now, whether you can change these lists, I don't know. I haven't looked into that very much, but he's got quite a few options there. You can add comments if you want to. You can put a little bit of information in here. So you can say alert all events or alert if down. If it's down, it's probably not going to be able to alert me because it can't get to the internet because my firewall and router are down. But you can check the box if you want to. So here you can skip repeated events. So if it sees the same event in an hour, 8 hours, whatever, you can skip those. So that could be useful for some devices that kind of go offline and stay offline for a while. But yeah, I mean, this I would want to see all events. Is it a new device? Is it archived? I mean, all these things. So you can set up all these settings, and once you're done, just go down here and click on Save. And it'll let you know that it updated and it saved successfully. So now if we go back over here, when we find it, you can see now that it's got some actual information for us to look at inside of this thing. So really pretty simple to set up, really easy to use, really easy to navigate. There's really just not a lot to do. The events section still, when you click, you get to the same thing you were just in. And then you can kind of see what sessions there are, any kind of presence detections, and then any kind of events that have happened on that device, and that's it. Other than that, there's really not much to do on these things. You can just check it out. But it monitors your network, and now I'll get emails whenever new devices are joining my network, which is pretty great. Again, once I go through and kind of clean this up and tell it, hey, don't notify me about every single thing that happens on this device, and clean it up and give it some device names, it's going to be even better. But that's Pi-alert with Pi-hole. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.